Hello my friends, welcome back once again. I hope you are having a peaceful and beautiful day. Today I want to tell you an incredible story. It is the story of a queen. This queen lived more than 2,000 years ago. She was beautiful. She was intelligent. She could speak many different languages. But her life was not simple. Her story is filled with love, power, betrayal, and danger. Can you imagine living inside a giant palace beside the sea? Can you imagine meeting the most powerful men in the world? This queen experienced all of this. Her name was Cleopatra. If you enjoy learning English through stories like this, please subscribe to Storyline English. Your support helps us bring you more wonderful stories for your English learning journey. Cleopatra was born in the year 69 BC. She was born in Egypt in the great city of Alexandria. Alexandria was one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It stood beside the sea. It had enormous buildings. It had libraries full of books. It had scientists, artists, and thinkers from many different countries. Cleopatra's father was King Ptolemy XII. Her family was not originally Egyptian. They were Greek. They had come to Egypt many years earlier. They ruled Egypt for almost 300 years. Cleopatra had brothers and sisters. In her family, brothers and sisters sometimes married each other. This was the tradition of Egyptian kings and queens. But this tradition also created many problems. Brothers fought brothers. Sisters fought sisters. Everyone wanted the throne. Everyone wanted power. When Cleopatra was still young, she studied many things. She loved learning. She learned how to read and write in many languages. Of course she spoke Greek, but she also learned Egyptian. This was unusual. Most kings and queens in her family never learned Egyptian. They believed it was not important. But Cleopatra was different. She wanted to speak with her people. She wanted them to love and respect her. She also studied science and mathematics. She studied philosophy and music. She spent time reading books from the great library of Alexandria. She asked questions constantly. She wanted to understand the world around her. People said she was the smartest person inside the palace. Maybe she was the smartest person in all of Egypt. But being intelligent was not enough. Egypt was facing serious problems. The country was no longer powerful. Rome was becoming stronger every single day. Rome was a city far away in Italy. But Roman armies were everywhere. They controlled more and more lands. Everyone feared Rome. Egypt was rich, but it was weak. Cleopatra's father understood this. He tried to stay friendly with Rome. He gave them money. He gave them gifts. But the Romans did not respect him. They called him the flute player. They laughed at him. When Cleopatra was 18 years old, her father died. This happened in the year 51 BC. Now Cleopatra became queen. But there was a problem. She had to share the throne with her brother. His name was Ptolemy XIII. He was only 10 years old. This was the tradition. A queen and a king ruled together. But Cleopatra did not want to share power. She was intelligent and confident. Her brother was only a child. At first, everything looked peaceful. Cleopatra and her brother ruled together. But the real power belonged to Cleopatra. She made important decisions. She spoke to foreign visitors. She controlled the money. Her brother's advisors hated this. They wanted the young boy to become the real king. They wanted to control him. They did not want a strong queen. Slowly these advisors began working against Cleopatra. They told people she was dangerous. They said she wanted too much power. They said she did not respect tradition. Little by little, they turned people against her. After 3 years they forced Cleopatra to leave Egypt. She had to escape. She traveled to Syria. She was only 21 years old and she had lost her kingdom. But Cleopatra did not give up. She was in Syria, But she did not sit down and cry. Instead, she made a plan. She needed an army. She needed money. She needed support. She spoke with local leaders. She made promises. She gathered soldiers. She was going to fight for her throne. She was going to return to Egypt. While Cleopatra was in Syria, something very important happened. A Roman general arrived in Egypt. His name was Julius Caesar. Caesar was one of the most powerful men in the entire world. He was chasing his enemy. His enemy's name was Pompey. Pompey escaped to Egypt. He believed the Egyptians would protect him, but he was wrong. When Pompey arrived in Egypt, Ptolemy's advisors killed him. They thought this would make Caesar happy. They believed Caesar would become their friend. A few days later Caesar arrived in Egypt. But Caesar was not happy about Pompey's death. He did not like the way Pompey was killed. It was not honorable. Now Caesar was staying in Alexandria. He lived inside the royal palace. And this is where the story becomes very interesting. Cleopatra heard Caesar was in Egypt. She immediately understood this was her chance. She had to meet him. She had to speak with him. If Caesar supported her, she could become queen again. But there was a huge problem. Cleopatra's brother and his advisors controlled Alexandria. If Cleopatra tried to enter the city, they would kill her. She could not simply walk through the city gates. She needed a clever plan. And Cleopatra was extremely clever. One night, a small boat arrived at the palace. A man stepped out carrying a large carpet. The man told the guards he had a gift for Caesar. The guards allowed him to enter. The man walked into Caesar's room. He placed the carpet on the floor. Then he slowly unrolled it. And out came Cleopatra. She had been hiding inside the carpet. This is how Cleopatra first met Julius Caesar. Caesar was surprised. But he was also impressed. This young woman was brave. She was intelligent. She risked her life just to speak with him. Cleopatra spoke to Caesar in Latin. She spoke beautifully. She was charming. She was intelligent. She told Caesar about the problems in Egypt. She explained how her brother's advisors were damaging the country. She told him she deserved to be queen. Caesar listened carefully. He was 52 years old. Cleopatra was only 21. But soon they became very close. Some people say they fell in love. Others say Cleopatra was only using him. Maybe both things were true. Caesar decided to help Cleopatra. He announced that she should become queen again. He said her brother must share power with her, as tradition required. But Ptolemy's advisors refused to accept this. They started a war. They attacked the palace. Caesar and Cleopatra became trapped inside. They had only a small group of Roman soldiers. Outside, the Egyptian army surrounded them. During the fighting, ships in the harbor caught fire. The flames spread across the city. Some people believe the great library of Alexandria burned during this time. Thousands of books were lost forever. The war continued for many months. It was extremely dangerous. Finally, more Roman soldiers arrived. They defeated Ptolemy's army. The young king tried to escape across the Nile River, but his boat sank. He drowned in the water. Now Cleopatra was queen again. She was safe. Caesar had saved her. Cleopatra and Caesar spent more time together. They traveled along the Nile River. They visited the pyramids. They talked about science, history, and philosophy. Soon Cleopatra became pregnant. She had a baby boy. She named him Caesarion. The name meant Little Caesar. Cleopatra said Caesar was the father. Later she traveled to Rome with her son. She wanted people to see her. She wanted them to respect her. She stayed inside Caesar's villa. But many Romans were angry about this. They disliked foreign queens. They also feared Caesar's growing power. Then something terrible happened. In the year 44 BC, Julius Caesar was murdered. A group of Roman senators attacked him. They stabbed him many times. They believed Caesar wanted to become king. But Rome hated kings. Rome wanted a republic. Caesar's death changed everything. Cleopatra was in Rome when this happened. She became afraid. She quickly returned to Egypt with her son. She did not know what would happen next. After Caesar's death, Rome entered another war. Different men wanted to rule Rome. One of these men was Mark Antony. He was a brave and powerful general. He had also been Caesar's friend. Mark Antony and another man named Octavian defeated Caesar's killers. Then they divided the Roman world between them. Octavian controlled the west. Mark Antony controlled the east. Mark Antony needed money for his armies. Egypt was rich, so he invited Cleopatra to meet him. They met in the city of Tarsus. Cleopatra arrived on a magnificent ship. The ship had purple sails and silver oars. Cleopatra wore expensive clothing. She looked like a goddess. Mark Antony was amazed. Just like with Caesar, Cleopatra and Mark Antony quickly became very close. Some people say they fell deeply in love. Others believe they simply needed each other. Mark Antony needed Egypt's wealth. Cleopatra needed Rome's protection. They spent a lot of time together. They celebrated. They held great parties. Cleopatra later had 3 children with Mark Antony. They had twins, a boy and a girl, and later another son. But this relationship made Octavian very angry. Octavian was in Rome. He no longer trusted Mark Antony. He told Roman people that Antony had forgotten Rome. He said Antony loved a foreign queen more than his own country. He claimed Cleopatra was dangerous. He said she wanted to control Rome. Slowly Octavian turned the Roman people against Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Then, in the year 31 BC, a great battle took place. It happened at sea near a place called Actium. Mark Antony and Cleopatra had many ships. Octavian also had many ships. The battle continued for hours. But slowly Mark Antony and Cleopatra began losing. Suddenly Cleopatra's ships turned away from the battle. They sailed away. Mark Antony followed her. His fleet was left behind. Many of his soldiers felt betrayed. They surrendered to Octavian. Mark Antony and Cleopatra returned to Egypt. They knew Octavian would come for them. They tried to prepare. They searched for allies, but nobody wanted to help them. Octavian was simply too powerful. 1 year later, Octavian's army arrived in Egypt. Another battle followed. Mark Antony lost once again. Then he heard a terrible rumor. Someone told him Cleopatra was dead. Mark Antony became overwhelmed with sadness. He stabbed himself with his sword. But the rumor was false. Cleopatra was still alive. Servants carried the dying Mark Antony to her. He died in her arms. Now Cleopatra was completely alone. Octavian captured her. He treated her politely, but she was now his prisoner. Cleopatra understood what would happen next. Octavian would take her to Rome. He would display her in a parade. People would look at her as a prisoner. For a queen, this was unbearable shame. Cleopatra could not accept this fate. On August 12 in the year 30 BC, Cleopatra died. She was 39 years old. Some people say she killed herself with poison. Others say a snake bit her. Nobody truly knows the truth. But Cleopatra chose her own ending. She refused to let Octavian control her final moments. With Cleopatra's death, Egypt stopped being an independent country. Octavian took control of Egypt. It became part of the Roman Empire. Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of Egypt. After her, there were no more Egyptian kings or queens. Egypt became Roman. Later it became part of other empires. But it would not become independent again for a very long time. Cleopatra's story is more than 2,000 years old, but people still remember her. Why? Because she was different. She was a woman living in a world ruled by powerful men. She used her intelligence. She spoke many languages. She studied science and philosophy. She did not rely only on beauty. She relied on her mind. Of course, she also made mistakes. Some of her decisions were wrong. Some people say she cared more about power than about her people. Maybe that is true. But she lived during a dangerous time. She tried to protect Egypt. She tried to keep her country free. And she almost succeeded. Cleopatra teaches us something important. She teaches us that intelligence is power. She teaches us that learning languages and reading books can change our lives. She teaches us that bravery matters even when life becomes difficult. She was not perfect. Nobody is perfect. But she never gave up. She fought until the very end. Today, when we learn English, we are doing something similar. We are learning a new language. We are opening new doors. We are becoming stronger. Every new word we learn is a small victory. Every story we hear helps us understand the world a little better. Just like Cleopatra studied languages to connect with different people, we are learning English to connect with the world. Thank you for listening to this story today. I hope you enjoyed this journey through history. I hope it also helped your English learning. If you liked this story, please give it a like. And if you want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more content for your English learning journey. And if you have ideas for other historical stories, please leave a comment below. I would love to know which stories you want to hear next. Until next time, my friends, keep learning, keep listening, and keep enjoying the beautiful journey of learning English.